All right, let's check out the FIDE candidates 2024. So this is the standings of women's. We have the two Chinese players, Tan and Lei, leading. Pretty much they're the only ones with real chance because we've already finished game 12, so just two more to go. So take a look at how they both beat each other with black. Now we have, back to the study I made with some of my favorite games. So the first one, Lei wins, and then Tan wins. And we'll check out some of the men's games as well. Okay. D4, D5, knight F3, knight F6.
Oh,
So
London.
a London, yeah. How do we, and I made a study on how to crush the London, just multiple games. I don't know if I showed you guys, did a video on that. Just
Oh, I would love to see that.
any ways to crush the, like a polemic on crushing the London. But yeah, we have typically, I like queen b6. You see the first game in that study shows the idea of queen b6, queen b3, c4. But she just doesn't do that here. White does it actually. So she just gets the active bishop. But you can see it's like a reversed queen's gambit. And black has really no problems. Okay, guards the pawn. Queen c8.
Right.
Tucks the bishop back. Should be 7, g4. So we see these committal moves g4. And in both cases, you'll see later too, it backfires. I mean, it's just really not that palatable to double the h-pawns and the g-pawns and allow that rook to be open against h3. You're already threatening that takes g4, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really not that palatable for white to do that, I think. Bit overextending sometimes. So a6, h4, and b5. So we're pretty much both going for flank attacks since we have this semi-closed center. Not too much action going on in the center right now. And that's where we have typically with d4, d5 openings. Your play is usually c-pawn, which is why we don't really want to, like a Jababa London, anti-positional, basically. You really don't want to block the c-pawn. So you're both able to use the c-pawns. Black more offensively, white more defensively. And then we have white just going on the flank attack. But even here, like I just don't love it for white. I don't think it's doing much. Just gaining a little space for both sides on the flanks, respectively. G takes, bishop d6, bishop g5, bishop e7. So we see a little bit of flirting with the draw. And then it's Tan who chooses not to draw. And often the person who does that ends up losing. Sometimes that happens because they overpress, right? So f4. Now we have actually kind of like a stonewall setup. It's a stonewall setup with the bishop outside, stonewall. And then stonewall Dutch is where f5 for black, right? So white's doing a stonewall attack setup all of a sudden. But we have very clear play for black, b4, right? Maybe a5 first. She goes a5, as you can see. And then b4, getting that pawn, as we talk about, like a pawn storm, we get like a bayonet. And we have the clear b-file play, opening up the rook, hitting the c3 pawn. And then again, for white, it's like, well, she's got a bit of a squeeze. Just to watch out for her h-pawn, though. But she does have pressure against black's g-pawn, which is, I think it's not too hard to defend that, though. It gets very complicated. So it gets more tactical. We clearly have our positional idea with black, but we have to watch out for white's tactics. So yeah, she just guards the pawn, king f8. It's not like she's going to castle anyhow. She wants that rook on the half open h file against white's pawn for defensively and offensively. And then we have, sometimes the king will be in the center when you have locked up, but I imagine if you stay in the center, white does have ways to open lines. So I think she figures, hey, I'm pretty safe on f8. Bishop g3, and it's pretty cool to see how she actually uses her king here. Bishop h4, knight e7, beautiful maneuver. That's why I really want to show this game first. So she does open those double F pawns, which we see a lot in both the men's and women's tournaments here. And it works in her favor. You think, oh, white has the H-pawn. But again, it's pretty tricky to hold the H-pawn. So I love this maneuver that she does. Well, first we get b4 in, as you want. Natural play here. Pawns are aiming toward the queen side. Rook's behind the pawn. Get that break in. Bishop h3. Now, actually, don't look at it now. Think about what it was. Think about what she did in this position. Very good positional move. So bishop h3 has just been played. What's a good positional move for black to really get us, really lock in that superior structure while restricting white? What do you think?
Would it be the b4 pawn?
Well, she kind of waits on that, but that's sort of keeping the tension. But certainly there. What do you think? Taking or pushing?
Taken.
Yeah, you probably don't want to push because then it's white who has the file. It's funny. It's actually similar to the Capablanca. The Vias for victory had white coming in, having pushed, but also white had more play on the king side. So we kind of leave the tension there. Take when you feel it makes the most sense. How about in the center? How do we handle the center? And also will be able to maneuver to put additional pressure on the H pawn. We would like to win that H pawn, break through on the H file. So what do you
Maybe
think?
just
Yeah.
push the F pawn up
Yeah.
too.
Exactly. Yeah, you guys are both looking at that.
Yep.
So now, interestingly, we've created that Stonewall Dutch setup, but we have the benefit of the doubled F pawns. So there's the doubled F pawns, right? That's a benefit for black because now you can always go F6 if you need to. So it's like a one-way mirror. You get to look into E4 and they have to babysit that one. Whereas if white comes into E5, well, you could take it if you want. We like our bishop on D6 though. It's a great bishop, right? You know, a lot of scope. Yeah, it's blocked by white's pawn. It's technically a good bishop, and that could become tactical because you're looking at their pawn, right? If the E3 pawn falls, boom, right? A lot of pressure. So yeah, F5 locks it in, shuts down the white bishop on H3, and now we're going to hit E4. So beautiful maneuver. She goes knight G8.
Yeah.
The computer says it's dubious. I don't care.
I don't care either. I would totally go knight G8.
Yeah, the knight belongs on F6. So you create a pocket on F6. Knight goes in there, looks at G4 and E4 and H5, right? It's very nice maneuver. I'm going to switch that. Okay,
What's a
computer.
computer
I'm going to
suggest?
switch it to good move.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
But
that?
just out of curiosity, like what is the move? Like besides that?
Oh, it's giving. Here's what it's giving. It says
Oh,
he takes it. So it wants Lynn's move now. Takes. Oh, it wants to go the other way. Wait, what is it? Where's it going to go? Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that. I'm like, look, if you do this, the way to
back
really
or
put
something.
pressure is to have your knight on B5 or A4. So it wants to do this maneuver. But I don't know. I like it on F6. It's just a decision to make. Check. I mean, it's not like you're anticipating you're going to get H5 like that. If you really want to go after H5, you kind of do need. I have no idea okay, whatever. It wants to, yeah, I don't know, whatever. Somewhere. And keep in mind when it does that, well, maybe it's thought for a while, it's processed for a while, but a lot of times when it comes up with these lines, it's like on chess.com, you do that 5-second analysis and it says, oh, good move, bad move, here's a line. But keep in mind, it's done that very, very quickly. So if you want to delve into that in the manual analysis mode, you'll see, oh, actually it doesn't think that's the best move.
Right.
I'm sure about this one. It may have thought about that for a while because it was sitting out there in the cloud, right? But I'm not sure how that one works. But keep that in mind. Take it with a grain of salt. Knight F6, H6. So not well, making you think twice about taking. The queen comes in, especially because you'll get forked. Yeah, definitely think twice about that. King E7. Well, there you go. Now she wants to take. So it's really interesting how she handles. First of all, we have this maneuver. So knight was on E7. So she moves the knight out of the way. After moving the pawn out of the way, locking it in, knight goes to the pocket on F6. Now the king is able to go to the pocket on E7. And now you're starting to see a real advantage. Let's see what the computer thinks. I think it's advantage. Yeah, it agrees. That we don't say winning -1 or something, but clearly advantage. You know, you got to do some work. Once we've done the work and we have a clearly winning position, we say minus plus. Minus next to plus, minus over plus advantage, equal over plus slight advantage. We could say black is really obtaining an advantage here. Black has all the play. Well, especially when we get that pawn, but we're about to get the H pawn. We have the B file play. We have a safe king. Well, interestingly, both of our bishops are looking at each other's pawns. Remember, that doesn't make it a bad bishop. It's a bad bishop for our own, like if this were a dark squared bishop, then it would be a bad bishop for white, vice versa. So same idea. If this were a light square bishop for black, it would be the bad bishop, like in a French or a Slav, where you have the C8 bishop, right? So anyway, yeah, we both technically have good bishops, but whose is more active? Black's, of course. Black has more scope. Black, yeah, just more ability, more space at the queen side. Yeah, and black is what? What's the pawn count right now? 7 versus 6 already. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, if you win that, you'll be up 2 pawns, and she starts chewing up white's pawns too. So we're getting that advantage. Okay, she pins, whatever. You're getting that pawn though. Okay, gotta deal with that. Covered. So we have to go away a little bit from the B file. We can deal with that because we're getting the H pawn finally. But in doing so, we have a lot of pressure on the H file. Oh, there's a tempo on the queen. That's nice. And we're putting pressure. So ultimately, she gets everything she wants. Better off on E4 than B5 anyway, right? She likes it there. And she's looking here on a G3. She's coming with the rook. She is aiming at that pawn, which she actually deals with by getting off the pin soon enough. Nice little maneuver there as well. See, it's kind of Capablanca-esque and not as beautiful as that game in a way, because that game was just so memorable, right? That big V, right? Remember, Lynn, you remember how memorable that? You remember how memorable it was? I think so, right?
Yes.
Whoever you were talking about. Yeah, but he does the same thing where she kind of stretches out on A1 in that case, and then the rooks are on H, interesting on A7, A3, queen's on A1. So she's kind of stretching out. We don't have tripled up yet, but we're gonna be able to work both sides. But yeah, it's funny. It is similar to the structure, but Capablanca's structure continued. The pawns continued to have these tails into the opponent's position, or talons maybe. Okay, queen a1. That's funny though. We're both doing that. Okay, some interesting similarities. And now king f6, and Capablanca moves the king on the other side. So maybe she's thinking of the Capablanca game a bit. Can't quite mimic it, but we have some echoes, right? Rook g2, rook h3. So every move she's encroaching, right? Little by little. And we're starting to get closer to a really decisive winning position. 95, we can see that rook eyeing the e3 pawn. Like I said, that could collapse. It does collapse soon. Here comes the queen. Now we're winning. See, now once you're in, it's winning position. I'm sure it agrees, -10. Right.
Well,
Now we can clearly say black is winning, verified. But yeah, you're in. They can't come back. You have
was
that.
she in time pressure? Sorry to interrupt.
No, good point. She was.
Uh,
37 seconds, meaning she made the move with 7 seconds. Yeah. So and then Tan Alay has 18. Tan has 37 seconds, 18 minutes. So yeah, let's see how long. Oh yeah, look at this. No, she had 2 minutes. She goes up to 32 because she gets the 30-second. 30-minute. Well, the 30-second increment, but 30 minutes added.
right.
Sudden
After
death
40.
after we're on move 40 right now.
Right.
Yeah. So and then she goes from 32 minutes to 4 minutes. So she thought for like 28 minutes.
Oof.
Well, it's already lost. I mean, like I'm sure if we look now, it's already saying it's lost. -2. Does this make it even worse? Definitely long think, wrong think. But it's just attack again. We're seeing a lot of attackers' advantage in these games. Attackers' advantage. I mean, just a beautiful. It says -1.8, but it's dominant. Even positions where it says almost -0.1, it's still if it's easier to play for you, And now that's where she gets off the pin. She comes in, queen in, winning. Okay, that's game. Check. We're working those dark squares now. So she had that grip on the light squares, which didn't let white block. That let her. I mean, 95 was clearly a mistake because then it just let us reach them laterally. Now we break through on dark squares as well, based on their own weaknesses from the overextension earlier. So we see this punishment for overextension, which we're going to see in Nakamura's game as well with G5. Just that kind of karma. What's it? You take your risk, and sometimes you know it's not going to work out. Sometimes you either win or you lose. Usually, okay. And then she resigns because rook d2 check is coming. Oops, not that. Rook d2 check. King moves. What's next? We have a mate. You guys see mate in 2? Not too tricky here. Just come in there. Who's coming next?
Queen.
Yeah, just carve your way in on working those dark squares again. Here, and mate. So yeah, that's a nice one, huh? I really like what you did after f5, how she turned a slight advantage into a decisive advantage. And if you hadn't done that, I mean, maybe you're going to see white going f5 and trying to triple the. You spoke about double f pawns. Maybe now we're going to have triple f pawns, right? We have to bypass, but if you bypass, you kind of soften up your structure like d5. So f5. Let's see. I'm curious if the computer agrees. I imagine so. Yeah. -1.2, it's saying. So computer likes that a lot. So that's where white -1 again, -1 getting an edge, not winning. Winning usually it says more than -2, like -1 is approaching -3. So it's kind of like, I guess you'd view it like in terms of computer language, maybe like -1 is like slight advantage, -2 is more decisive, and -3 is like minus plus or plus minus winning, right? That's kind of, roughly speaking. But then again, it might have like knight, bishop versus rook and say -6, which is sometimes the case. But obviously, as a human, you have a lot of work to do. Knight, bishop versus rook, pawn. Computer loves it usually, but human got more work to do, even if it's very good. Anyhow, yeah, so I really like that one. And then now we get to see the other side, also with black, but we're seeing tan win. So we have it just becomes a queen's gambit decline. White does the exchange variation, pretty quiet variation, or positional. I think it's called positional variation as well. Bishop e7, and break the pin, kick it out. Now, a lot of times they'll take, not exact, yeah, not in this exact position. It's not the main line, but a lot of times the knight will be taken. Active development. Now we're kind of out of book already. Castles. So just simple active piece play. Okay, so trading knight, trading bishops. The knight, they don't bother taking the bishop back. They want a good knight on c5, and she is keeping her bishop, interestingly. She's going to kick the knight out probably, and she's covering b7. Okay, we trade down. And now we're seeing just kind of these intimidating swings by Tan, right? She's just making her a little nervous about the g2 pawn and bishop takes h3 stuff after queen h4. So she ignores her, ignoring her with a mate threat. She takes back. I think, yeah, the computer just wants to come in right away and sack, threatening mate, right? If you come in and just sack and try to mate them. Interesting, let's see what the defense is to that. What's it giving as a defense? Just king up to not get taken there. And then the rook wants to come here, also threatening either probably just bishop takes, then take f3. So bishop would run away and it still wants to take. Let's see, what's the line? Take, and then rook takes check and getting crushed. You go back, it comes in, so take. Then you get it back with interest. Well, I mean, look at your king compared to their king.
Yes.
3, 4, 5, 6, 4. We're currently up 2 pawns, and their king's exposed. And their pawns are all hanging. I mean, if you have time, you go maybe rook b8, game over, or rook e8 and take, game over. But yeah, if they want to trade queens, you're just up in the endgame, 2 pawns, pretty easy win. So, and you're going to get to take the b file, the only open file after you trade queens. So what happens though, she kind of intimidates her opponent. And again, there is a defense, but it's kind of a computer defense, if I recall. So she intimidates her. She's threat. I mean, she does have a bishop takes h3 threat. So the queen comes back to trade. But this is a nice transition where you can often do this. You create some intimidating threats against the king and say, okay, fine. Well, if you defend against them, I'll transition into a better endgame. That's a nice way to go. So it's just a conversion. Let's see. All right. So we just take, and then black, see, it says -0.2, but again, it's just easier to play. And then she goes wrong here, and then Tan takes over. But the question is, what was the best move? It's saying just ignore that, go rook ac1, allowing bishop take, which is, again, a very hard move to make, right? But you have this move. And now it says white's better. What do? You come here, so if she takes the bishop, you get their bishop. Rook tucks over. What's it saying? Let's saying this now. It's kind of a computer line. Because you get stuck in here, right? Let's see what happens. Let's see if white tries to actually win the bishop, because there is a pin. Okay, it's a complete computer move. Just curious what it says. See, you're going to get the bishop, but you get the f pawn now. You get some pawns out of it. And then, okay, you can't even take because the mate. And it's a mate there. So
Wow.
take back. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6 to 4. So I mean, that's definitely worth it. 2 pawns. Well, this pawn's falling too. So at least 2 pawns for peace. They could take the h pawn. I mean, but yeah, white would have to play both would have to play very accurately. It's a complete computer line. It's like walk into that pin on the h file and kind of anticipate you'd get f2. It's very murky. What if they take here, for example? Oh, then you have rook h4. Game over, right? So you have to play g3 to cover.
H4 is game over, right?
Yeah, so you just go g6 yourself, and then white can't do anything really, and then black probably just keeps mopping up pawns. So, but yeah, that's a complete computer line. So because of that, she does the natural human move, which is trade queens. But now she just plays a beautiful endgame, and white airs at some point. Let's see. Nice and solid. She wants to check or come in. E7, just bring your king over. Now, keep in mind, there is a weakness for black. What's the main weakness for black? Well, 2 problems for black, several problems for white. What are the main problems for black in terms of pieces and pawns? A weak point.
C pawn.
Yeah, the C pawn's a backward pawn. If that falls, then D5 probably falls. So that's a problem. I mean, similarly, D4 is weak, but it's not on a half open file, so it's harder to reach unless you get the F pawn, which actually happens. So there's the F pawn, obviously. If you guard it, you take the H pawn. So there's a problem here on these pawns for white and this pawn for black. It's kind of 2 against 1. The A pawns are both isolated, but that's kind of neutralized. And how about the pieces? How about the rooks are both out. So the rooks are on the half open and open file, and then for white, and then black has done a rook lift to get the F pawn. How about the bishops? Technically, whose bishop is better? Now, at least. I don't know. It's kind of tricky, but technically, who has the good bishop?
I was going to say that too. Yeah, black.
Well, technically, it's a bad bishop. technically, because it's on the same. It's
At
on
the
the same
moment,
color
like
as.
at the moment, he's bad, but like he could be good, like in a move.
But
I
white looks
mean,
like bad too.
Well, it's the theoretical bad bishop because the central pawn. So for example, like I mentioned, if white ever, well, first of all, the bishop might get tied to c6. Secondly, yeah, they can attack our pawn easier than we can attack theirs because we don't have a bishop to attack their central pawn. Again, it's biting on granite, but still, black needs to keep an eye on c6. If c6 falls, probably d5 fall. Even if we're blocking them, but like I showed in the last game, we talked about the bad bishops. So we both have the good bishops, but they're biting on granite, but they're still considered good bishops. It's but that smooch sometimes because maybe you get a bishop in here, like white's bad bishop. This reminds me of a famous Capablanca game where he weaves in to here. So you get in literally with b5, b4, then he does this. Really nice famous Capablanca game. So this is considered the bad bishop, but then it's moot if you can activate it. But you can see it's not that simple. Might not do anything if you come out right. So again, it's still a bit of a liability in that your bishop is more restricted than theirs. And obviously white can just move the bishop and do things, right? So yeah, technically there's that slight issue along with c6. And for white, well, it's the weak pawns here on d4, f4. Now f4 is de facto weak because we play g3. But then you see that, and keep in mind, it's not totally, now the bishop would be really bad if we had this structure and white had a pawn here like a French. Then he only has one way in the game, in which case he's just looking at thin air. So it's not totally bad. Kind of like the position is not totally closed. It's like semi-closed. It's not like, it's not as locked as a French or a King's Indian, typical scenario, right? So in other words, the bishop still has like it's like semi-bad. Does that make sense? Because the fact that it's open on it has the scope on the c8 h3 diagonal means that effectively f4 is weak because you play g3, you lose h3. Does that make sense? So you have this interdependence among these pawns because of the bishop on c8 causing that. Does that make sense? Kind of tricky, I guess.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Also, like just that the pawns are on the, well, I guess they'll switch, but since they're on the white, like you're saying, like and the bishop's on the white, whereas whereas white's bishop is on the white and the pawns are on the black, right?
Yeah, and like for example, let's say you end up putting a rook there to defend. Like sometimes they'll have tactics against it.
Right.
You might, so we just don't have that ability as black. Like we can't attack their central pawns with our bishop, but in this case we can attack with the rook. But even so, like let's say you take f4, they can and should go, I think, rook d1, and then it's hard to pile up on it. But again, if you have that, like you can see, if there's ever a line where we have these exchanges of pawns and white picks up c6, then he probably gets both. She'll probably get both pawns, c6 and d5, because the bishop's ready to go. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So give me 1 minute. 1 sec. All right. So we have, so this happens, right? But interestingly, so you can see the bishop, the quote, good bishop becomes very good because it's just aiming direct. But then again, she's losing the pawn. So again, it's not locked up anymore. So you can quickly move it off. But still, you can still see the power of it. I mean, push, you have to watch out for this stuff against A8. So black needs to be cautious when the bishop unleashes. But hey, I mean, she's currently up a pawn. She got F and D for C, right? Now this was a mistake. What was the best move? He was like, what was the best move here? I mean, rook e2, but still, I mean, black is still up a pawn currently. So it's like, yeah, the pawn it's no longer locked up and it's going to try and move soon. So it's not easy to, again, it's the kind of thing where even though rook d1, you can see the evaluation, well, -1, as if there's no compensation for the being down a pawn, basically. Okay, so she moves her pawn. We'll see why. Maybe not to get it locked up. We'll see. Maybe just to make it more intimidating, like more dangerous if you get the A pawn a little closer to queening. Let's see. But now it's really nice play here. So she's just, okay, I'm up a pawn now. Yeah, it might be in some cases, for example, if you leave it there after the bishop moves, you will get tied down, rook a6. I think she doesn't want that to happen. That's probably partially why she plays a5. But now really nicely played by black, and white misplays this herself. So the king, you're going to see the relative king. Okay, so we trade off 1. Still up a pawn. So watch the king moves here. King g3, not a good move there. It says blunder. And then king comes in. Now it's saying bishop takes. Let's take a look at that real quick. Saying bishop takes, rook takes check. So we kind of have a tit for tat. And black remains a pawn up, but if you're the one who's down a pawn, you want to keep trading pawns. Get down to that kind of draw scenario, usually a draw if there's only one pawn left and you have activity, probably more likely to be a draw, right? And then, or for example, let's say you're down to bishops and a pawn. Okay, you could sack your bishop for the last pawn and draw with insufficient mating material, just a bishop left, right? Things like that. And then there you go. See, very instructive the way she wins this. I mean, instructive as to what not to do. I don't know why she brought her king. Well, she's trying to defend her pawn, but maybe, I don't know, g3, it's difficult. It's very difficult. Then rook f1 pins it. It's not an easy position. So we have that attacker's advantage. We're up a pawn, superior king placement, and now we're ready to just support our passed pawn. And white's passed pawn's a little too slow, but we're seeing attack. We have a mating attack going on now. So it shows you can still, in an endgame, go for a mating attack because it's superior king placement, mating net, right? H4 is kind of working. H4, G and G2 are working against the king, and F3 bishop's kind of going to be a target as well. So rook E8, she actually has to do this, and so it looks like. Then she has a great move here, G5. So think about why that's such a strong move. I'll be right back. Just think about why G5 is so strong. I mean, white is actually forced to do something to defend her position. I think it's only move.
Yeah.
So what is it, talk about, I'll be right there. What is it that black wants, and what is it that what is white's only decent response? Be right there.
Well, black is threatening checkmate, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we deal with it?
You do one or two things. If G takes H, the king is in check. And the king already has nowhere to go.
Yeah, he's done. That's the end of that.
That's the end of that. So yeah, that's why.
Okay, so how it's actually a defense to this?
I don't know, because if just imagine, I mean, if G takes H, what's gonna happen?
G takes H,
Okay,
then
G takes H. Yeah, what's gonna happen? King has nowhere to go.
yeah, he's checkmated. He's done.
Checkmate. That's checkmate. That's why she did that.
That's a good move.
Very
Okay,
good
so
move. Very good move.
Yeah, what does white do? So white
said bye-bye.
White's like, okay, next game.
I resign. or something like that.
Yeah, even if like white takes, like then I think he pushes.
Who white gonna take?
White can white take the pawn? Like white
Oh,
plays.
the bishop. You mean the bishop takes the pawn?
No, I was thinking maybe the pawn takes the pawn.
Right now on G5?
Yeah.
Okay, what it's similar idea then. I heard you saying there's a mate threat, right?
Yes.
That's the consequence of that mating net. Yeah, he's in a complete net. You can't get out of that. So what happens if pawn takes pawn? What's
I
black?
think it's the same thing. Then you just push, right?
Yeah, you either push or you take. Either way, he's he's in the
Yeah, if pawn takes pawn, you push, you still
same thing. Yeah. Oh God.
If you do something like, okay, let me push my in a blitz game, I say, oh, I'm gonna run my pawn. That's mate too. So there we have a mating attack, meaning there's only one move, well, which is indicated. It's showing this.
Oh, I wouldn't have found that. No, I wouldn't have found that.
So she takes that. Yeah, you still just push the H pawn at that point.
You just gotta take it. You gotta take, because the benefit of the bishop is, well, what happens? Let's see.
He's
The
got
bishop covers the light
cut
touch.
off. Yeah.
Take. And then then you're able, then you, once H4 is played, it's not mate. Because
because you don't have your bishop there.
Right. The pawn, if the pawn, it covers G4, but once you push, there's an escape. But it's losing. Now it's losing. It's like, once again, she has an attack on the king, second wave, right, of an attack on the white king, and then he has to bail out. First time she won a pawn, which is worse structure, ultimately led to winning a pawn because misplaying. In this case, she had to part with an exchange because the bishop and the pawns and the rook and the king all worked together. And then once all this happens, that d pawn is very useful because once she wins the exchange, she's going to need that d. Well, she actually has 2 connected pass pawns now, so those pawns just give her, they give Lei no chance. Final hope is the g pawn, but she plays it very nicely. Okay. So she swings, take the pawn with check. She's getting that pawn no matter what. Okay.
Wow, just in time.
Yes, you take with check and then you come down. Now she takes. Well, I mean, that's where I mentioned these pawns, even just one probably, but having both, it makes your job a lot easier. So when you win the bishop, you can sack your rook for the pawn and you're left with these pawns here. Yeah, because if you only had one, maybe white would have time to like snatch the d pawn or something. So there's no time for that. I mean,
right.
So yeah, there are even in some cases there would be ideas of pushing, but here you just take and win the bishop.
Just take it, win the bishop, and then march your pawns down.
Yeah, and you simply give up the rook, but the final variable is your extra pawns. So yeah, you were actually threatening another thing earlier. Oh, there was something around here. Oh, it's why can't she take? Because the rook check. I think she would win the bishop, if I recall. Check.
Yeah.
If you want to. I mean, it's actually a little murky because of the pawns. It is winning, yeah. Yeah, it's winning, but I mean, if you want to, you can just do this as well. And now we're threatening a check from behind. And I mean, I don't know which one's easier. It's probably just win the bishop.
I would do the bishop. I'd be greedy.
I would get
but still, there's a lot of pawns to deal with.
Yeah.
But no, you're gonna get this. Yeah, you just have to make sure that you have to be very cautious.
Because now all the pawns are gone.
No, yeah. I mean, he's gonna push this pawn, but we have to be accurate here. Oh, never mind. Skewer. So they have to be accurate. Well, let's say they go here. Your king is coming. It's going to take them a long time. You can easily pick off the H pawn. And as they begin advancing, let's see. They can't push yet. They have to go here, but then we keep encroaching. Oh, wait, no. See, table base says it's drawn. Hold on. We have to be very accurate.
Oh.
Well, everything else wins. But no, we want to get our king closer. So we go here. They go here. We can probably swing our rook around and check them. Yeah. Let's say they push the pawn. We are going to check them, make them go in front of the pawn. And then we probably have just enough time to cut them off and swing around to take their pawn. And we're not going to give them time to stalemate. We let them keep pushing. Let's see. We should be able to set up a mate. Just go here. Game over. Because you're threatening mate. And I can't do the pawn push. And now we can take the pawn and win. Oh yeah, the computer says the easiest win is this because it just cuts them off. So you already have them cut off and you just have to take it and return. Can't even go here, right? Oops. Oh, yeah. And then we could just get rid of it and return if we want, or just ignore them, either way. So yeah. But it's still a little tricky because you can see in some lines you draw there when they have 2 pawns for the rook.
Yeah.
I was actually looking at it with my student last night about situations where you either win or you draw based on slight alterations in where the pawns are, like 3 pawns and a king against a rook and a king, for example. And sometimes the 3 pawns win, sometimes it's a draw. It depends on the position exactly. So slight alterations if they're on the 5th rank and 4th and 3rd, or 2nd and whatever. Okay, so that was a nice
useful
one.
to practice. Like I haven't done it in a while, but like on Lichess, like they have like the end games like where there's like one outside pass pawn, but you can draw or you could win it. And,
Yeah, well, this is the book I actually got a new one because the other one was so moldy. It was all wet and getting disgusting.
Oh,
So
I think I have that.
that's a great book. I really love this book.
Oh,
What's the
okay.
name of it,
It's
David?
called Endgame Challenge. This is the thing where it's comprehensive, and you may not get that from an online course. And you can pick what you want. They give you little hints that you can look at if you want, or you can do it like a tutorial and look at the answers first.
Who's the author?
It is John Hall.
Oh, okay.
Senior Master John Hall. Yeah, and there's Lou Hayes and John Hall.
Oh, Lou Hayes is great.
Yeah, I just saw something about him recently. Yeah, he did a combination challenge. They did it together. Really great compositions.
Does
It
he
says
do?
there's one game by Spassky against Larson, famous game. It
I'm
does.
gonna have
I
to
don't know
take
if the
off
rest of them
time.
are composed or what.
Okay. It
All
was
right.
nice
Yeah,
meeting you,
now
Lynn.
Yeah,
take care,
I
Lynn.
have to
See you
take
next
off now.
time.
See you
Thanks for
next
coming.
time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Yeah. Anyway, great book. So it's gonna show you some things. I mean, it breaks it down, and we'll talk about it later, but it breaks it down in terms of bishop, bishop versus knight, rook versus minor piece, queen and pawn. It starts with the basics. Got king and pawn is very difficult, you know. Queen endings are of course very tricky too. So the more you work on that, the better, you know. But it's simple puzzle. They're great for teaching too, to pull stuff out of that book. They're fun. They're really elegant. And again, they're really instructive because they have these slight alterations, like, oh, now it's a draw, now it's a win, right? So anyhow, yeah, that ended up winning, creating that mating net. I really like how Tan just kept improving her king. You see the power of that king there, to both support the pawn and mate. And White never had time to carry out her plan. So we really see a very interesting development of a kingside attack with just a queen, a rook, and maybe a bishop, maybe a pawn, including queen, rook, and bishop. And you can see it's kind of cut off here. Traditionally, White would play on the queen side when the pawns are aimed that way. And she just can't really reach it very easily to defend her own king. That's why she comes over this way, but then she messes up her structure and Black ends up winning. Okay. Now, I really liked this win by Vidit. Firouzja made that mistake of going pawn grabbing, but it just shows you a couple of these games. It's very straightforward play. In a way, it's a little complicated, but just centralization out of the opening in a Sicilian, right? We can all do this, you know, D4, we know the open Sicilian, nothing much to memorize there. You see this a lot. And then you just get a bishop on C. It's actually not super typical the way he goes with bishop F4. So it's very common to tuck your knight back. Now, bishop F4 actually is the second most common move. But look, I mean, he just gets his pieces on logical squares, right?
Right.
Queen up. Could probably go either way here, but castle's queen side. But like this is a little more complicated, right? The inclusion of A3. But I think the idea is that there's B5, B4 idea to win the E pawn, to chase away the knight. So he doesn't give him that. Just nice and tight, a little loose though. You have to be a little careful, but he kind of knows that Black can't exploit that right now. But you just see, he comes back. Nice centralization. Everything's guarded now. Now he goes for this G4 attack, provoking Black to take on F2, which he does. And that's not good. G4, G5, typical way to attack the Najdorf position, right? Early G4, G5. I think it's called the English attack or something when you do it really early in some lines. But this is an interesting kind of offshoot, some of those lines. But it's just very straightforward, you know, centralize your pieces, castle queen side, get that D file pressure on D6. Pretty good defenses on his queen side as well, hard to get to it. Of course, there is the B4 thing to open up lines, but even so, those knights are great defenders. But if you give Black a little time, he will generate an attack, you know. But in the meantime, you're getting the initiative. You're not giving him time. Especially taking on F2, that really gives White initiative, and the queen has to always worry about something. Now, this beautiful move, E5, very complicated stuff. I wanted to look into this a little more even, but to understand this, there are a few very interesting lines. Now, for example, knight takes E5 fails on the spot. Can you guys see why? There's immediate tactics here. Keep in mind that the danger of that king being centralized. So what is the tactic now if the knight
Bishop takes B5.
Bishop takes B5, X-ray is X-ray on the queen, so he's able to get discovery. Discovered. Some people think discovered check. That's called a discovered attack, you know? Discovered check, because the discovery is against the queen, not the king. If the king were here and you move the bishop, that's a discovered check. You do a check, but by moving the bishop away, you're actually doing a discovered attack. It doesn't matter what a lot of people misunderstand that, the terminology.
I think I might too. I don't even know.
Now you know.
Yeah.
Because the discovery is an attack. It's not a check, right? The discovery itself is against the queen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If it's against the king, it's a discovered check. So it's a discovered attack that is a check.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It's both. Yeah, but the discovery is technically an attack. Okay. So if he takes with the pawn, meanwhile, I know we have some stuff going on against D7. This is a little more complicated. So we're trying to remove the knight to mate him. But the thing that I'm a little confused about, still trying to understand this, trying to wrap my mind around it, is there is rook D8 giving some time, but he has these problems here. Okay, so it's white's move though. What is the move here? I was trying to figure this one out. Can we just go after the queen?
Like scooch back with your bishop?
I think so, yeah, maybe. Well, she wants to escape on a diagonal to, G1, A7 diagonal. So maybe here, forcing queen H4, similar to the sim line of the game. Let's see. So let me double check. Yeah. Oh, bishop G5 is the win. No, but now, oh, right. That's the whole point. Because now that we've opened this, so we're working against D7 and the queen simultaneously.
Okay.
Now we get to take, and there is, oh, even 94. I was thinking probably
Just
this,
take, yeah.
this is good too, is it not?
Oh
Oh, he could
no.
he could trade queens, but he
Yeah.
could create a little bit of murkiness. But the nice thing about this move is you're still gonna get rid of the queen, but she can't trade. You just take her. So here we're winning the entire rook, it looks like in this case. So we win a rook instead of a piece. That's why it's giving us +4 instead of plus 4.4 instead of whatever it was in this line, +3 point something, right? +3. See, so it's just, yeah, it's just easier. But that's interesting. So we lure the queen over simultaneously, effectively forking them to remove the defender to mate. So we're working against the overextended kind of trapped queen and the mating net in here because the pieces aren't developed and to reach D7 and mate as well. So you're winning the knight or the queen or the rook or getting mate or mate is too much. So that's very brilliant, really brilliant move, E5. Really nice move there. I mean, direct in some ways, but still, you have to find that. Once you see it, you're like, oh, all the lines work. But I assume he saw that when he allowed queen takes F2. No matter what, he's got a good initiative. So he doesn't take. Friedrich simply retreats, and he's kind of just caught off guard. Then he just takes D6. So we have, we got the F pawn for the D pawn basically, and now he has just a thorn, right?
Yeah. This looks very uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I want to see his accuracy. I'm sure it's really high. Because you see, for example, it's like, oh, I want knight C5 +3.5. Do this +3.4. So it doesn't matter. 0.01 cent upon loss, right? Or no, 0.1 cent upon loss.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
So queen D4, rook C8. Now this was the move also. I'm like, wow, look at that move. Interestingly, it says +2.5. When he makes the move, it's like, never mind, +4. It realizes how strong this move is. Very complicated, right? Bishop C6. Just takes the pawn. And then he sees that he can actually block. I mean, it's like that other line we looked at that was more of a computer line, where we are looking at the queen's here and the bishop takes H3 in the first game or the second game. But I think he just knows that there's no way to hit the bishop right now further because he doesn't have queen C7 because D6. So he can't really attack it further. So he sees that. Can't really, I mean, I guess you could try and play knight C6 and move the bishop, and then he comes in here with the knight and he still covers and he has knight C7 check. So he senses that, interestingly, by taking the pawns on the queen side where his king is, it allows him to break through to get to the king indirectly, or just win pawns and win the end game. And he'll have 4 connected passed pawns, right? 4
Wow.
connected passed pawns right there, right? Beautiful once he starts pushing. So yeah, it's very interesting. And besides, by taking those pawns in front of his queen side, he has so much coverage anyway. Even if black had some initiative going, he should still be fine. But black has 0 initiative right now. So he's going to get B5 as well. Yeah, it's really nice. Well, my question was, when I was looking at this, I was thinking, how about rook B8? I was showing, let me take away the best move arrow so we can guess. Yeah, it's saying bishop F4 though. So we're trying to undermine everything and like reach B5 with check. Well, there's a nice idea of getting to F7. So I don't know. What is our threat though directly? And I think it's some takes. And then is it takes here, or even bishop takes, knight takes, knight C7 check will be very strong. So for example, let's give him a random move just to see what would happen. He's just petrified here, like almost a Zugzwang. There's really no good move. Oh, how about queen here? Oh, we just take, win a piece. So yeah, it gets us off the hook with our queen anyway. Okay, let's give a random move. Like, oh, okay, how about G5? So we take, are we sacking? Yeah, we're getting our check in. It's a very strong check. Okay, knight blocks. What is happening now? Yeah, he's
Maybe
completely
bring in the
overloaded.
knight.
Just very direct. Yeah, very direct forcing moves. You said take the knight.
No, bring in the knight, maybe.
That would also work, but very direct move. Always look for your forcing, most forcing. So
Almost
first
forcing.
we have checks or
Oh,
capture.
okay.
So
Okay.
capture checks, then captures. So even rook takes f7 will be looked at second.
Yeah.
This will be looked at third, maybe. So what's the most forcing move now?
And bishop takes.
So bishop takes. Okay, what if queen takes?
Queen takes rook.
Yeah, everything falls. Yeah, you take the rook. And if king takes, then what can we do?
King takes. And oh, then rook takes f7.
Rook takes f7, and then king, and then queen check, and yeah,
Wow.
they skip the way the queen. Or king returns, and at the very least we have rook takes b. So we just chew up all, just eat everything, getting all his
Yes.
pawns, getting.
Pac-Man it.
Was that?
Pac-Man.
Yep. So bishop c6 takes. I really like that. It's very interesting. It's kind of computer-esque moves, right? Well, now he's the one walking into his opponent's. Interesting, right? He's the one
Yeah,
walking
I'd be
into his
afraid, of
opponent's territory with
course.
his queen, but it works for him, not for his opponent, right? Very interesting, huh?
Yes.
Completely outplaying your opponent. And I always like this. I always like this the group together knights and bishops. I mean, look at the harmony in there, right? Everything's
Yeah.
working together. He's got the F file. He's got taking this coming in d6 pawn. I mean, that's a +3, but I think where is he clearly winning? I think really at this point. I mean, even earlier. I mean, the brilliant move. Computer always says white's winning, but you have to prove it a bit still. Like I think once you clearly come in and you get you get here, it's just winning. It's just a winning position. You're in, you're not even down any pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're up 2 pawns, right? Only hope is if black can somehow get the bishop on a7, but he doesn't have any time to get there. So I'd say, yeah, I would give white winning symbols here. Nice and safe. I love how snug that king is. Just look at the relative difference, everything, right? The better
Yeah.
queen, winning the pawns, safe pieces, the d6 pawn, the king on e8. It's just everything combined. And now we come in. Now he can castle. Okay, now this is where we get to save our bishop clearly. Just takes it, gets off the pin with tempo on the knight. It's interesting. It says +3.6. Once he makes his move, it says +5.7. That's how
Wow.
strong his moves are. And now he just mops up. We're up a pawn, but no, wait a second. No, exchange and a pawn. Yeah. And then he
Yeah,
just
not
quits.
just any pawn too, like a nice pass pawn.
Oh yeah. And he does have 4. I mean, technically, I think we consider it 4 connected pass pawns, even though it's not like, well,
Oh, good point.
it's
Yeah,
got
I
the
didn't even think of
ability
those
to, you have
guys
the
down there.
ability to connect them easily. What's that?
Yeah, I didn't even consider them. I was just looking at the D pawn. I didn't even look at the A, B, and C.
Yeah, those are just defensive right now, but you can easily get c4, c5. But I mean, basically, yeah, effectively, they're about to be connected pass. I mean,
Yeah,
basically, I think I'd consider them connected pass, but unless you had something like where there were, like a pawn. No, if there were any pawn nearby, like even a pawn on D, it wouldn't be considered a pass pawn because it would be taking
right.
on soft stuff. But yeah, as long as there are no pawns, you got the ability to definitely connect them all. Okay, so queen d2, rook d2. And just beautiful. I mean, just really nice technique here. He knows he's winning. Centralized. We're seeing this theme a lot. Centralize everything. Look at that. Nice prophylactic. No checks.
Yeah,
Nice.
got my king.
Nothing to do. Nothing. No tricks on the diagonal. He's like, look, you're done. Plus, it goes +5.4. He makes the move. +7.5. Kavito keeps realizing it's stronger. I mean,
Yeah,
so when it's on fire, he's unstoppable. And if you take this, the rook can simply come back and get 2 pieces. Get the 2 pieces for the rook, so it becomes up in exchange, becomes up a piece, and game over. He would should resign. About to resign. He's done. Yeah, knight c6 is coming.
yeah.
3, 4, 5. Up 2 pawns in an exchange, and it's about to queen. So yeah, queen c8. Nice.
Very nice game.
Yeah, I love the the e5, the way he has the bait. Great centralization the whole game. The bait.
Yeah, that D6 pawn just like kills black's entire position.
Yeah, even if we can't castle, that's the thing. It keeps him from castling too. And Yeah, and in the meantime, so he has the combination of the D6 pawn, the F file, and eating the queenside pawns,
Yeah.
and the save for a king and everything. So there's no real counterplay. But the fact that, I mean, I don't know if he even had to do this, but the fact that he found all that, like, I'm curious if he hadn't done Queen A7. I think his job would be more difficult though, because then Black has a little bit of resistance there. You can't quite do as much then. He has some time, right? You have to think, well, oh, do I have to do a sack and tag? No, he doesn't need the sack. He just takes the pawn and then wins the B pawn. And so he doesn't sack anything. But he has to know, he has to see bishop A7 though, because otherwise the queen is trapped.
Right, right.
So similarly, I just love how he says, hey, it works for you. For me, it doesn't work for you, right?
Yeah, she's totally like it looks like she's totally trapped there. Like it would be such a scary move, but I guess he
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
calculated it, but it
You
looks
just
like
kind of in this kind of thing, it's the way you do it is beyond calculation. It's looking at setups where you say, okay, what setup can Black have where they actually go after my bishop? Well, if he moves his bishop, I know I can go take b5, in which case I guard it again,
mm,
and I have knight c7 check, which is decisive. So he can't give me b5 with the knight. I can also take with the bishop. He just sees how strong that is.
yeah.
And you just look at the forces. You say, look, how do they look at it again? You can't go to b6, can't go to c7, can't get to c6 because the bishop's there, can't do anything with the d7 knight. So you can just send, you don't need to calculate that. It's more about setups. See, that
Okay.
makes sure it's a very important thing that you can do. A lot of I think GMs do, masters will do that all the time. It's about anticipating every reasonable setup, any feasible setup that you can see, and then it's over. Yeah. So he wins too much material. Now, as for we were talking about earlier, as for how well Nakamura is doing, let's just take a quick look at his win. If you have, it's already past 2, but do you have a minute?
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to go. Yeah, I don't know about map, but
All right, you gotta go. You want to flip through it real
yeah,
quick, see where he wins. Well,
yeah.
this was the game of it's interesting. We think, oh, well, White's playing so, it's like, it's so easy to play like this, right? As I was saying, we briefly looked at it before, just scanning through them. A lot of people go bishop c4, knight c3, a lot of scholastic players do that, but it's really simple. You just make a pawn chain. The more sophisticated part is the knight bd2 thing to go to f1, but it's easy enough to learn that, and that's the thing that is directed against the pin, so you can kick them out, you can't go back because the knight is so it's directed against that and directed to go knight f5. So yeah, he just does that, and we're seeing that really strong knight. So even though Black goes d5, he gets a loose position. White's able to break through the center, and we're starting to see really how he. So you have isolated D pawn, kick
Mhm.
the knight back. Looks like the knight had a good square, kick him back. It's really nice win by knock. Oh, and this was the one that was like 9 sets upon loss, 97% accuracy by Nakamura.
Gosh.
I'll show you real quick at the end. So doubles up. Just look at that centralization. Squeeze
Especially
it.
for such a long game to have it so accurate for so many moves. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, and especially since it's not like super clear cut here.
Right.
But he's playing very logical, just centralizing. He tosses an h4, h5. Sure, why not? Trying to get a little
Toss it
something
in.
out. What's that?
Toss it in.
Just toss it in. Make a loop and try to get a little something out of this queen. It's kind of like in the Caro-Kann, bishop f5 line, where you get like go g6 and you get like you get the tempo with h5, h4, h5, the Caro-Kann line.
Oh, okay.
It's that same structure, yeah, on the king side. So it gives you more attacking. And then everything is so well centralized. We have 4 pieces mobilized. He only has 1. So it just speaks for itself. But it's kind of like in the other game, which I included near the bottom, the whose game was that? The FIDE game, round 2, I think round 2, where he crushes Nakamura. And there, Nakamura is way behind the development. Beautiful game, but it's such a complicated game. I think that would require more time. But anyhow, yeah, everything's centralized. And then you mistake, and then we have check, hanging knight, knight d5, game over because we're threatening mate
Oh,
and we're threatening the queen. I think there's just no
very
defense,
nice.
just zero defense. What is it even giving? Like c5, queen takes c5, knight d7, knight takes f6. Knight takes c5, knight takes e8. I think he's losing a piece there. Yeah, if he goes c5, so his only hope is to get the tempo here and move the knight away with tempo. You take, they take, you take, and you're up a piece. Yeah, game over.
Huh, very nice.
Queen piece up. Yeah. So, and amazingly, just the final move. You just ignore it. You just don't worry about the knight because it'll be made if he takes.
Ah,
So yeah, you just kick the rook out anyway. But
ouch.
yeah, just a game of centralization, very straightforward play, and that knight getting into that knight, whatever. getting into f5. That was, and one
Sorry.
changes him back. So he has the e file. He tries to challenge the e file, but in doing so, he moves the bishop back, which gives him knight f5, and that's decisive with queen b4, and every single piece was decisive in allowing this to work. So yeah, cool, good analysis.
Yeah.
Nice
Yeah.
job.
Thank you so much for your time,
My
as
pleasure.
always. And
Yeah. Oh, let me stop the recording real quick.
okay.
Yeah, nice job.